Hello, and thank you for checking out my channel. Today I'm going to talk about upgrading a table saw with a fence system that is just really amazing. It's the Alumi-lign system. I got this Delta table saw secondhand. It's very, very old, and the table was just the basic table. And I've been in the process of doing upgrades. And the reason for the upgrades is one of the issues is the original table came with the stand, and it had one plate on one side and one plate on the other. And the top was rusty, and obviously I had to clean that, and the blade was bad. And yes, I know there's no guard on there or kerf splitter or whatever. I'm working on it. But the biggest drawback on this table was the fence. And I won't even show you the old fence. It was just the original Delta fence. And somebody had copped things together to try and make it work. Well, every time I had to do a cut and it had the front and back rail, I would have to measure to the front and back of the blade, because when you locked it down, it would move. And when I say move, I don't mean move after you started using it. I mean, when you locked it down, it literally moved. So it was, quite an effort every time you wanted to make a cut. And even with adjustments, it wouldn't stay in line. I would say it would go as far as an eighth or more off line. So I started researching, and as you can see, I added more plates, and I'll get into the upgrades to the saw. Obviously, first thing, it had to go on a platform that I could wheel it around, and I added a box on the side with some supplies. But let's talk about the fence system, and it's Alumi-lign, okay, and JD Build, I believe is the company. I'll make sure I post it in the comments. And what I was looking for was, one, that it wasn't going to break the bank. I mean, I paid $100 for the saw, and it's a great saw. The saw blade itself, well balanced. I put a new blade on it and did all the things to make sure there was no blade wobble. It is perfectly square, so that was a plus, and the motor is good. But as I said, the fence was a problem. So I researched getting a new fence. Now it's a 22-inch deep table, and finding a fence that would fit it was problematic, because if they had a back rail, they wanted the table to be 27 inches or greater. And if they didn't have a back rail, let's say they were just a front rail, very expensive. And the other thing I wasn't looking forward to was they all said, you probably have to drill your own holes. And, probably nothing to drill some holes in the cast iron top, but still, a challenge. It's pretty thick stuff, and, if you're not perfectly there, you're going to have a problem. So I found the Alumi-lign. The price was right. And the thing I really liked about it is it uses your existing holes. As you'll see, and let me get down here so we can get close up. Okay. These first three here literally are going into the tabletop holes in the cast iron. And anything on these extension plates, and you can see I've added a couple more plates, go right into the holes. I've got another bracket ordered because I wanted to get the full extension of this and the proper support for it. But yeah, I mean, that was amazing, okay? And the fact that it didn't matter about the length of the fence, because as you'll see, I've added an outfeed table. Okay, so and it's hinged, it locks in place. Well, look at that. So it didn't matter if the fence was longer, and they give you the option to cut it down. They show you actually how to cut it down if you didn't want the overhang like that. But, you know, I did. I wanted to be able to cut bigger pieces. Now, I've built myself a sled for smaller cross cuts and everything. You know, you can find a million videos on YouTube on how to make a crosscut sled. And I made mine. Let me just go over here. I have it hanging on the wall, and I have a little square there too. But yeah, that's fine for smaller pieces. But when you have a big piece of wood that you need to cut, you don't always want to put it on a table and have to use a circular saw and everything. You know, within reason. I mean, you know, if I'm going to cut a 4x8.5, I'm probably going to use a circular saw and start from there. But then cutting down that piece, I'd like to be able to use my table saw. And I want to use my table saw with accuracy. All right, so let me tell you more about the Alumi-lign. The first thing they have you do is put together these wheel rollers. And I'm going to show you how this works. That's released right now. Get the square out of there. And it just rolls along the guide. And it makes noise, obviously, because, you know, you're on the table. And I'm actually off the table, as they recommend, a certain amount. But, you know, just the weight of the fence is going to move it. But the cool thing about these is you put them together first. And I'm gonna zoom in. There's 4 spacers on each thing, 4 wheels. And if I zoom in, those front spacers are eccentric. They're oval. And the reason for that is so that you have the option to tighten or loosen, depending, you know, you don't want any wiggle or anything like that. So that gives you that option. Let me zoom back out again. Of determining, you know, how much tension is on that rail. So, you know, you put that together first, and then they walk you through the assembly. You put your brackets on, and it's very easy. They use these hammerhead kind of, well, there's a variety of different kinds of connectors they use. I'm going to show you. They have these here, and everything connects together pretty much with an Allen key. So you put things together, you know, loosely, and you know, you slide your wheels on there and make sure everything flows properly. And so the top one, and I haven't installed it yet, is where your tape goes. And I haven't installed it. It's here, okay, and they give you the pointer. And again, the reason I haven't installed it yet is I'm waiting for the final bracket to arrive so I can, like I said, I ordered that separately. They send you 5 for this length. I believe they send you 3 for the shorter length. But it was very easy to put together. So you put it together, and then you assemble your fence and attach it to the wheels. And then you start your alignment process. And how tough is your alignment process? It's a breeze. If you start here and get these, you know, basically it's a straight bar, right? And, you know, your fence is off of there for part of it, but it's a straight bar. And, you know, you put your fence in, and if you align these in the proper direction, then it's going to go out in the proper direction. I don't know if that makes sense, but I can tell you this, you know, there's paper instructions, but the video instructions are awesome. You can find them on YouTube. They have steps 1, 2, 3, 4, and somebody walks you through the whole thing. So I'm raving about this and say, yeah, okay, you know, you paid half the price of other fences, and, you know, but how does it stand up to the other fences? Okay, so let's look. I'm going to just put this in any position, and the locking is so easy. You just do that, and the fence is locked, okay? And you can take a square, and I'm going to put the square there, and hopefully I can zoom in. And you can see dead center of the blade, and let me make sure I am, yes, I am flush. Dead center of the blade, we are 6 7/8. Dead center of the blade, right? Now we come over here, and where are we at? 6 and, well, let me make sure I'm 100% square. Don't want to cheat you. 6 7/8, dead center of the blade. Is that freaking amazing or what? And all I did, you saw, I just pushed it over and locked it in place. That's it. And I've measured across the length here. You know, you say, oh, well, you know, it's probably good when you're closer. What is it like when you're further out? So like if you were out here, and trust me when I tell you, I've made sure that these extra extensions are level. I didn't want to have just weight hanging off of there, and it's not being supported by this. It's literally, I used the holes for where the old rear rail was and got a steel bar, a thin 1/8 inch steel bar. So that steel bar runs the length here to support it, and I've built it up with a level to make sure that this is level all the way across. So what if I were to lock it here, way out here? You got a big piece of wood, and you wanted to measure it. Let's see if I can do this with one hand. Yes, I can do this. I'm gonna set the phone down for a second. Okay, so we were measuring this using a measuring tape, and I tell you, I've used some very fine measuring devices to see, and basically all the way across, it's within 1/64 from front to back, a quarter of a width of a blade, which is pretty amazing considering, you know, the span. So if we look here, and I'm gonna zoom in, we are right at 25 5/8, right? So let's move the tape measure to the back. And we are at 25 5/8. Maybe it's a 64th, maybe 128th different, because it's not quite dead center of the blade, but I mean, my God, look at that. And look at the span we've got, you know, over 24-inch span from the fence to the blade. Pretty impressive. It was very easy to put together. So some advice. Number one, make sure you have some good set of Allen keys, especially a long key. They're supposed to provide it. They did not in my package, but you need a long one. The short one is not always going to reach where you need. And the size on this, let me just look with my eyes. I forget the size. It says the size in the instructions, but yeah, you can look online and see what you need. But you need a long one, because I had that same size in a short one, or maybe that's a different size. No, that's a different size. That's the size. And it is not long enough when you need to reach certain things. This works better. Their support is awesome. I've actually talked to the owner, and I will post a link to where you can buy this. But like I said, I'm very impressed. And for those wondering, you know, what is it I'm doing? I'm just doing basic woodworking. My wife and I, we like to restore old furniture and things like that. We're not cabinet makers. You know, I don't need to be within thousandth of an inch, but I do need to be able to have some ease of work. And having an outfeed table, having a wider span and work area is very helpful. I do have improvements for safety coming. I'm getting, I have in the mail 2 zero clearance plates, throat plates, and we'll add the kerf to that so that the kerf splitter. I don't really have the ability to get a blade guard for this. I mean, the machine is old. I even contacted Delta to try and get a new fence originally. They were definitely not available. And when I asked them about their secondary fence, the one that they offer, the universal, blah, 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 no, it won't fit your table. Great. Any suggestions? No. So I'm putting it out here. Alumi-lign, look it up. Look in the link in the comments and you will see. You will not be disappointed. You definitely won't be disappointed. I wasn't. I mean, to align this thing probably took me 10 minutes. I mean, I thought that was going to be a bear. I thought, oh, you got all these brackets and you're going to have to align this thing. And what if it's close here and not there? And I know I'm rambling on. Other upgrades, as you can see, I did the outfeed table. They make these really cool brackets for that. And you saw I can easily release them to drop it down, get it out of the way. I just used an old drawer and mounted it to the side of the table. And now I have I plan on sealing off the box because all the sawdust comes down. And I have an adapter where I will add the shop vac to the whole thing. And like I said, what kind of woodworking I do. We have a little cabinet that's in process here. We ripped apart. I make, excuse the mess, I make cabinets for vintage receivers myself. I restore the receivers, and then this one is in piano black. So to cut the wood for this, you really need a little bit of precision because, you can't do it with a circular saw. And if your table saw is off, then this box is not going to be square. It'd be a nightmare to put together. So, yeah, that's what it's for. My special thanks to Alumi-lign for their great product. Have a great day, folks. Hope you enjoyed this.